topic, which is business models for selling architectural, engineering, construction knowledge over the cloud. I'll start by giving a research background about the construction industry and the concept of business model, and then I'll move to defining my project objectives. I'll define the literature review and methodology that I achieved in order to arrive at the objectives. Then I'll describe the 3 detailed business model and finally summarize and conclude the study. Construction industry is one of the main pillars forming today's economy. It forms around 14% of the global economy with an expectation to increase to 18% within the coming 7 years. We are facing a lot of problems within our industry. It's a very fragmented industry that involves multiple stakeholders, especially in the design nature where it became more complex and multidisciplinary, where it's now required that we manage and coordinate a lot of design stakeholders together. Also, this rendered information management a challenging task within the industry, and in many cases it's inefficient within the companies. Globalization has opened an opportunity for internationalizing. However, in many cases it fails due to high transactional costs and overheads and inadequate information available about the international markets. On the bright side, there are some opportunities that, if used, can improve the industry and generate new business opportunities, such as the increased information within the different market boundaries and the data that's embedded within the modeling and simulation tools that goes beyond just the virtual representation of the building. If this knowledge were managed successfully within the companies and the market boundaries, using business analytics and new information technologies, it can have a huge opportunity for improving the industry. So the AEC companies should reconsider their business models in order to avoid these problems and build on new opportunities. In order for any company to change its business or to start a new business, it goes through 3 main phases. The first is defining the business case, which is the reasoning of why am I doing this. The second step is the business model, which is a generic map of how a company does its business. What are the basic elements that I need and what are the basic map that I'm going to use. And finally, this business model is developed into a business plan where we developed a step-by-step procedure of all the detailed and resources and activities required to achieve the outcome. Astor, Walter, and Pignier, one of the researchers in the area of the business model, combined all the 9 elements together in a user-friendly canvas. In the middle of their canvas comes the value proposition, which is what is the value or service I'm proposing to the customer. This value uses activities and resources that are used to generate the value or product. If those activities and resources are not available within our company boundaries or in-house, we acquire some partnerships that assist generating activities and acquiring the resources. On the other side of the canvas comes the customer segment, which is who is interested in what I'm proposing or who will be buying my services. In order for the value to be delivered to the customer segments, some customer relationships and channels are required to deliver the final value. On the financial side, the customer segments pay revenues for the services they get, and the company proposing business model pays for the activities, resources, and partnerships. The difference between the revenues and the costs is the profit generated from the business model. This is an example of the business model for Facebook. So as we all know, the main value is a social network platform that is proposed to us, the internet users. On the other side, they are proposing audiences for advertising companies and games and applications developers. The customer segments in this case are the advertising companies and the developers. Their main revenues come from the advertising revenues and the development, and their main activities are related with the network and software development. Their costs comes from paying for the human resources and maintaining their IT infrastructure. Now that you have an idea about the problems and opportunities you are facing and the business models, we can define the objective of my research. The objective was to develop a business model in the Astor, Walter, and Pignier framework defined in order to sell AEC knowledge services that adds value to the client through selling wisdom and intelligence customized to the customer needs. The models are based on selling the knowledge packages online over the cloud, where we use the cloud computing platforms and cloud servers as the main platform for selling our knowledge. In order to arrive at this objective, we studied 4 areas in the literature review. We started by identifying the concept of knowledge as a commodity. We had to define the difference between the common knowledge and uncommon knowledge. The value comes in the uncommon knowledge, which is not available to everyone. We need to make some more activities and analyze it more in order to discover it. And that's where the real value is. We had to define the different types of knowledge and how to discover it, different sources of knowledge and where they come from, and the modes of transformation when you transform one form of knowledge from one form to another. After defining this, we arrived at the knowledge-based services on how we are going to sell the knowledge to the client. The second area investigated was the concept of business models, where we had to define we have to investigate different definitions of business models in literature till we arrived at the most generic one, which is a map of how a company does its business. We defined different elements in the literature. Also, we have found that the framework of Walter and Pignier identifies all the elements together, so we decided to use this. We investigated a lot of classifications, whether in the construction industry or in other industries, in order to develop the preliminary models and arrive at insights that are used to develop the models that we will propose finally. While investigating these different classifications, we found a relationship between the business models and the concept of e-business. However, at this point, I would signify the difference between selling e-business and selling consulting knowledge that we are doing here. E-business is mainly adding an online twist to the physical activities we are conducting. So it's just migrating the buying and selling activities online instead of having it face-to-face, in addition to transforming paper-based activities into electronic-based. They develop virtual platforms for online interaction, which enhances online procurement and bidding. On the other side, online knowledge selling is just forming a virtual business environment where we can service the client online. We are doing the same technical and management analytics, but instead of doing it in-house or in the office, we are doing it online and selling online knowledge packages to the client, composing of the wisdom and experiences of us as a consulting office. The third area investigated was cloud-based services. We had to define cloud computing, which is a new business model emerging for selling computational power online. There are three types of clouds: infrastructure as a service, which is on-demand computational and storage services to the client, such as Amazon Web Service, that made their hardware available to the client on demand. The second type is software as a service, where the software is available on demand over the cloud for the client, such as Salesforce, which design customer relationship management softwares. They also do analysis on the data acquired by these softwares to develop patterns and trends that they can sell to the client and enhance their consumer products. Platform as a service, which gathers a lot of stakeholders together and coordinate their activities, such as Incentive, that designed a platform for problem solving. They gather a lot of experts and crowds around the world in order to solve a certain problem. This is an example of how a cloud office looks like. Up there are the business models that I'll be describing later in the presentation. In the middle comes the cloud office with the three types and all the activities involved, till the final delivery of the product to the customer, where they can access it over their computers or mobile devices. The last thing was to identify the who. Who am I going to sell this to? We identified different types of construction clients, what are their motivations, and what are the aim of running their business. And then we had to define what different client business lines are working and what experiences we expect from the client. And finally, develop the client attributes and characteristics that might be important when I'm selling them these business models. After conducting the literature review, we went to conduct some open surveys with experts in the construction industry to arrive at the preliminary business models. Once those preliminary business models were developed, we moved into a structured survey done on SurveyMonkey online tool in order to determine three key points. First, the most suitable client profiles that I'm proposing these business models to, the most important client attributes when offering each of the business models, and finally, the most suitable payment method that I'll have for each business model. This is a sample of how the survey looks like on the SurveyMonkey. Three main questions identifying the importance of the three identified factors. This is a sample of how the results look like. We got around 17 respondents. We crunched all the data to arrive at averages for each question, which were later used to identify the final business models. The final step was to have another phase of validation, where we went with the final models into another validation interviews with industry experts to do the fine retunement and make sure that they are applicable to the real industry. The first model we are proposing is business management and intelligence. The need for this model arose due to the sophistication of the business environment and the increased market data that's available, even external or internal. Also, the opportunity for internationalizing opened a new opportunity for international markets for a lot of companies. However, they need to get adequate information that gives them decision-making tools whether to go or not to go. The main offerings we are proposing here is project configuration advice, where we can advise on scope of work, project configuration, whether to go or not to go, give expert decision to the client. And if they go for the project, we can do track and analyzing, where we offer procurement services in addition to project analytics for their current projects. A good example for this would be an owner who wants to construct a residential building outside of their business scope or in an international area. So during the pre-construction, we advise them whether to go or not to go and what are the best decisions they can make. Whether the procurement, we give them advice about the contractors, suppliers available that they can use in their project, and whether they can get any useful partnerships. And during constructions, we monitor their project and give them recommendation and recovery plans when required. This is the first business model in the canvas. So the real value we're proposing here is improved reliability to the customer. We're providing access to data that the client wasn't aware of before that they can use to improve their external and internal operations. We're providing them with decision-making tools that can give them wisdom and experience whether to generate more business opportunities. More importantly, on the other side of the supply chain, we are proposing reputation management for contractors and suppliers, where we can be their marketeers and recommend them to the clients upon their qualifications for different projects. The model was proposed to 3 customer segments: contractors and suppliers, municipalities, and clients with or without traditional engineering department. The main activities we're doing here are all related to data. So we collect this data, we analyze it, and then we tailor it according to the customer requirements. We also have to make sure that we do the research and development required to maintain the business model, in addition to market ourselves to sell it to